Hello, everyone. My name is Matthew, and I'm joined tonight by Ronin.
Yes. So is this another episode of Two Mats, No Steve, or is this something different?
This is something different. This is just our review of Avatar: The Way of Water, the film that is blowing up around the world. It seems to be making $100 million every single day. It's up to $1.5 billion as of the recording of this review. So we both saw it. I did see it in 3D, so I'll be able to bring that. Did you happen to see it in 3D, Ronan?
Yeah, I actually went on ahead and I used that as a clever reason to get out of a late family Christmas event. I was just like, yeah, well, I have to go. I have a thing. It
Good.
worked.
So we'll be
So
able to. We'll Yeah, we'll be able to discuss the film in, how James Cameron wanted us to view it. We both saw it in 3D. Now, before we dive into the review, and this is going to be a non-spoiler review, so we're not going to go into all of the little details of everything that happens in The Way of Water. But, the first Avatar came out in 2009, and it was the biggest movie ever. $2.97 billion, I think it's made so far in its total run. And I think we both thought the first Avatar was all right? We didn't think it was terrible. We didn't think it was great, but our feelings generally were like, yeah, it was a good, solid movie. Correct?
Yeah. It's like that's a damn fine movie. The plot moves along well. The characters, are unlike a lot of the superhero movies of the day. You actually do remember these characters. It's solid. It's a fine, good movie.
If you had to rate the first Avatar, like on our normal Outpost Unknown like letter scale, A to F, like how would you rate the first Avatar?
B. You know what? B plus.
B plus.
Yes.
Okay, B plus. I'm actually going to go, and this is not an indictment that I think the movie's bad, because I'm sort of making my ranking now based on seeing The Way of Water. I would probably give the first Avatar a C plus. Not bad. I liked it more than I disliked it, more than average. But that's kind of where I would sit with the first Avatar after having seen The Way of Water. So that's just kind of a glimpse into our minds as we're sort of going into, because I know tons of people just hate this movie. Even people who haven't seen it hate the original Avatar. It's like a meme now to just hate on that movie and James Cameron and what he's doing. But that's kind of where our head space is going into our review of The Way of Water. So, Ronan, I'm going to give you just I'm throwing it over to you. High level synopsis of The Way of Water, like in a paragraph. What is this movie generally about?
All right. So, Avatar is the story of a young airbender named Aang, who has been discovered recently in the cold waters of the Northern Water Tribe, and then has to go forth and master the four elements, so that he can bring balance back to the world and stop the fire. Blue cat people. What the fuck? Oh, god damn it! It's the wrong movie.
I think we could say that the plots of these movies are not the most original things about them.
No, that's a solid criticism of the original movie in that it is more or less Dances with Wolves, but in space. Like it's nothing spectacular story. Like the story is nothing spectacular, but it's told very solid. I've used this description before for the video game Batman Arkham Knight. That is a poor story told very well, and Avatar is a very generic story told very well. It also happens to have very pretty visuals that, for the most part, have aged very well. And so the plot synopsis for Way of Water is more or less just kind of the same thing. Like it's been like something like 15, even in world, it's been like 15-ish years since they beat back the Sky People, but now the Sky People are back and they're harvesting adrenochrome from these wonderful whales.
It's the
And
new unobtainium.
yeah. As like it, and also they apparently are like, we are going to take over the most hostile planet humans have ever come across, and we're going to live here now. Which is more of As good as these movies are and as solid as they are with most of their plot telling, both Avatar and The Way of Water mix in some dumb fucking shit into these movies.
Yeah, I think I don't think that if someone who doesn't like Avatar was to come at you and say, "Look, man, the plots of these stories are really repetitive, redundant, kind of stupid." I don't think even a fan of Avatar, like a big fan of Avatar, could disagree with that or combat that in any logical way. These stories are very sort of fundamental stories. You know, I love Star Wars, for example. And I like to bring up Star Wars, but the original Star Wars, that's not something that's mind-bendingly original story-wise. It's just the classic hero's journey told up in, hey, here's TIE fighters and cool, new, interesting elements. But the story is what I'm talking about. The stories in both of these are just your sort of standard fare. The Way of the Water, I think, is a little different than the first Avatar. That this one is really focused on family. So you really get, you know, Jake and I forget all their names. All of the names of all of these characters are just they go beyond me. They're weird and I don't get them. Was it Neferti? I don't know what her name is.
Zoe Sultana's character? No,
Yeah,
it's Natiri.
Natiri, that's right, Natiri. They now have a bunch of kids, and you know, bad things happen. The Sky People come back. That's not a spoiler. Sky People come back
Yes,
to
no.
try to, you know, get Pandora, get the resources of Pandora. I mean, I say like, well, we're not going to spoil anything, but it's literally the same plot essentially as the first one, only with a different thing that they're looking for and added in a bunch of family elements to it, which I did think worked.
Yeah, yeah, I could in a bizarre way, I think they made it's like when I went back and rewatched the first Avatar a couple of days ago because I hadn't seen it in a while. Like the kind of thinking that you get is, well, Sam Worthington is just like this boring charisma vacuum, and Zoe Zaltana, while good, is just kind of like that's like the way the movie is remembered. And then I go back and rewatch it. I'm like, you know what? No, these guys are putting in work. You like Jake Sully. You like these characters. They like, they do what they do what they need to do. Unfortunately, the rest of filmmaking has not been kind to Sam Worthington, which I think is more of how he gets that kind of reputation. Uh, so like you watch Way of Water, and it does kind of sort of seem like they make the good decision to have him because his story is kind of over. Like that first movie is the story of him becoming Navi. That's over. That's happened. He's become the warrior guy, and now his story is kind of like the side story of him, just trying to I'm not the warrior guy anymore. I just want to keep my kids safe.
Yeah, it's the father, right? In the
Yeah.
first one, he was kind of like the warrior husband, and now he's transitioned to, hey, I'm a father now. My sole purpose is to protect my kids.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it. And so that is kind of his story. And the film generally focuses on the kids a
Yeah. Yeah.
lot more than Jake and Zoe Saldana's character. Well, so what are your likes? What did you really like about Avatar: The Way of Water?
More like like the story again. It's nothing special, but it's told solidly and bizarrely enough, in a weird way, in a world of like subpar Marvel movies and Marvel TV shows and Star Wars TV shows that can't do that right. Having a story that, while not spectacular, is told very well in of itself gets this movie a whole lot of fucking points. So even if, like, because we mentioned it's more or less focused on the kids, that's why it's like it seems like it's just the first movie again, because now we're getting the kids learning how to be water people. So all the
But
stuff that, like, a lot of the stuff Jake had to go through, they're going through now, but underwater.
do you know what this kind of reminded me of as I was watching it? It reminded me of Terminator versus Terminator 2. Like you have Terminator and Terminator 2, like you mentioned, is essentially the exact same story as the first Terminator, only they add a bunch of extra elements into it that sort of, you know, makes it rise above. Same story essentially, but there's, you know, additional stuff in here. And so I agree with you. I think in terms of Avatar versus Avatar 2, I think Avatar 2 improves on pretty much everything from the original Avatar, even in terms of story, because I do like all of the elements of the kids. Normally, like I'm like, oh man, this is going to focus on kids. Kids suck,
Yeah.
but I actually enjoyed these characters, these kid characters. I thought they were all written pretty well. I didn't find any that were annoying except for Spider, fucking Spider, the human of this crew, and I did not like him, and I did not like how his story sort of ended and sort of what he does at the very end. But overall, I did not sit there thinking like, oh my god, I'm just sitting here, watching these kids be annoying brats through this whole thing.
I have a
Um,
slight inverse where it's like, I didn't mind Spider. In fact, I kind of was like, man, if Spider turns on them, he's got a fucking great reason to because they fucking abandon him. Like, it's like
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, it's like Sam Worthington's opening thing is he's talking about how like there's this kid Spider who he couldn't leave with the rest of the Sky People because you can't put babies in a hypersleep, so he was stuck on the planet, which brings up a fascinating question as to what they would have done if everybody had to leave, but if no scientists stuck around. So, but okay, mild spoilers. Like he more or less gets abandoned at the end of I guess it would be the first act because it's how long this movie is. It's hard to figure out where the first and second and third act would start, but he more or less gets abandoned. And like Sam Worthington describes him as like, oh well, yeah, he's kind of like an adopted kid. He's almost like a stray cat that just won't leave your house. And
Yeah,
like it's clear that he likes him. Natiri
the
does not
kids
like
like him.
him.
Yeah, the
Yeah, and
kids
his
like him.
yeah, and his kids like him. Like his kids are like more or less like, yeah, he is like another son as far as their kids are concerned.
They
And then
call him
they just
brother and stuff.
yeah,
So
yeah, and I mean, but if I hopefully I never have to hear someone say "bro" again because I heard that line so many.
that's a drinking game in this. Every time somebody says "bro," take a shot. You'll be
Yes,
dead by the end of the first hour.
yeah, but like again, Spider gets fucking abandoned, and it's just like, if he was going to turn on them, he's got a fucking solid story reason as far as I'm concerned. Like like just a little twist to point out, like
Yeah, I agree with you. My problem with Spider, and fuck it, we're just gonna spoil. I'll just put spoilers in here because it's hard to discuss some of this stuff without spoiling it. He basically Stephen Lang's character. Who I thought Stephen Lang was great in this as well. I think it was very like for this world that James Cameron's building, the way he comes back, I thought was very plausible. I was like, okay, I can buy it because I buy that this is
they can
technology in this world
yeah,
that they
they
can do.
can create avatar like they can create human avatar hybrids and transfer your mind into one of them. So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
like
it's fine. Like the idea, okay, we can make a clone, we can make a copy of your brain and put it into the clone.
yeah.
Like, okay, I buy it.
And I thought he was great in this. I mean, Stephen Lang plays a great villain anyway. I mean, he's just great. And basically at the very end, Spider is his kid, and Jake has basically killed him. And Spider saves him and puts him up kind of like on a rock. And then Stephen Lang takes off, and then Spider goes back to be with his bros.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I did not feel that that plot point worked because if James Cameron wanted to do what I agree that would have been a better thing if he had a reason as to why he would turn on them and go with his biological father, so to speak. But they didn't do that. He just goes back to him, and it's like again, a valid criticism. I know where this story's going. I know exactly what's going to happen now. And in part three, there's going to be the inevitable Spider turn on his family and more drama with his dad and stuff like that. And I just felt that that was a little weak sauce. I was like, I wish they would have. I didn't like the Spider character overall. How it all played out.
So I was okay with Spider. I'm not entirely sure if they're going to go with him doing a full on heel turn, if only because it's also incredibly obvious that Spider has a crush on like Sigourney Weaver's character. Also, spoiler: Sigourney Weaver is in this movie, but is a different
Yep.
character, but not a different character. if that makes any sense.
It's very weird. It's a little confusing. It's a
Yeah.
little confusing, honestly. Like there's some parts of this movie that I would say, by and large, you do not need to watch the first Avatar going into this one. But there are moments, short scenes in this where if you don't have any idea of what happened in the first Avatar, you're going to be confused. You'd be like, well, what is actually going on here? Like, who is the father of this kid? Sigourney Weaver just popping up for literally 30 seconds in the movie. You can tell they're just teeing that up for something, in part 3 or 4
Well,
or
she
whatever it is.
pops up as Grace Augustine for about 30 seconds, but
That's what
like
I mean. Yeah.
the character of Kiri or Kitty or however it was they pronounced that, that's her. It's just like
Yeah.
they digitally de-age her voice or something like that, but that's yeah, that is her. She was doing the acting and all like that's her through and through.
Yeah. So anything else that you liked about the film?
Well, like the effects are nice, obviously, but that's not a selling point anymore because you throw a rock and even movies that have bad effects or effects that don't quite look right are still really good. Like example that would be Infinity War, like like Robert Downey's bio arm like our Iron Man suit, and the same sort of thing with like Spider Man's Iron Spider suit. Their heads don't look quite like they're meshing with it. The effect wasn't quite finished, so it doesn't look right. But it's not nearly as bad as let's say like Green Lantern, where
Do you
uh,
feel like the visual effects in Avatar: The Way of Water are clearly superior to something that you would see in like Endgame or some of the really high level Marvel sort of stuff? Do you feel like what James Cameron did here is on a different level?
like yes and no. It's got the same sort of thing. Like in a few select scenes, it is like when they're first popping up underwater, and this is the scene where it's like, okay, this is clearly the 3D scene of the movie where they're first showing up underwater, and you see all the fish, and everything looks
Yeah,
beautiful and awe inspiring, and it's still like really one of like two areas in the movie where it's like the 3D is actually worth it. It's like so to that extent, yeah, but otherwise, like not really because not like it's not knocking the movie, but it's just like an effect sort of thing. It's like you can like you kind of know how the sausage is made. Like most of the shots in the movie, the characters aren't really super close up, so you don't need the super high res like for example with like Thanos. That's the thing everyone would compare it to. Thanos had a couple of different 3D renders that they had. One of them was like super incredibly ultra detailed with pores and wrinkles and all this other stuff in his face with little facial hairs and stuff, and then other like models of his face were substantially lower res just to save them time on rendering it.
yeah,
And that's basically the exact same thing here. It's like when the most of the time the characters aren't in super close frame just for like purposes of rendering it. And that's just how the sausage is made. That's not knocking the movie, that's just how it's done. So
yeah. And I agree with you. I remember in 2009, I distinctly remember in 2009 when I watched that one, especially in 3D, I was like floored by the visual effects and the 3D. And this is bleeding into a little bit into my dislikes of the film, or maybe not dislikes, but more disappointments. I felt this one. I went specifically for the 3D because I remember just being so blown away in 2009 by what James Cameron did in that. I did not feel that the 3D was really emphasized in this at all, which I was kind of shocked by. I mean, there are definitely moments and scenes where you're like, "Wow, okay, that's pretty sweet." But even it's not just stuff flying at your face or coming out. Like there's shots where like machine guns are shooting and bullets are like flying, tracers are coming towards you, and all of that stuff is cool, and people love that for the 3D. But I really love that original Avatar for the depth that James Cameron did. Like there were shots on the ships and stuff where it's just like I feel like I'm actually like here and I could, go out and touch somebody or something like that. Just the depth of the 3D. And I didn't feel like I got it in this. And maybe it's because this was shot, a lot of this isn't in the forest at night. It's broad daylight on ocean, and there isn't a lot of ways to really make depth pop in that. If that makes any sense. What did you
No,
think of the 3D overall?
yeah, no, that's exactly my thought on it. Like too, as like the first movie, the 3D I think stands out a little bit more, if only because of the fact that like when you're in the forest, you have all this like wonderful luscious forest stuff, and then you cut.
Layers and
Yeah,
depth. Yeah.
and then you cut to the human stuff, like this is the first one again, and it's like all the human stuff is also, it's like I understand, like it's like, well, this is what the things will probably look like in like 100 years, but it's also clearly intended to make things look cool in 3D. Like it's like there's 100%. That's what it was intended to do, is look cool in 3D. This movie, there's almost no human element in it. Very, very, very little of it. So there's no cool video screens and them moving things around and putting things in the
Yeah.
little glass. None of that happens because again, there's very little human technology. So you're left purely with like very in the opening of the movie. There's a little bit of cool 3D in the forest, and then the only other really cool 3D thing is when they're first in the water. After that, the only use the 3D has is depth of field, and your eyes adjust to that really fucking quick to the point of which where you don't even really notice it.
Yeah.
It's like
I
it's like
agree.
it's like yes, things have depth to them, but that's not justification enough. Like the sad thing about 3D, which is why to me it always will more or less become kind of just like a gimmick, is that unless you have plenty of weird scenes where stuff is coming at you, or you maybe like the environment the movie is set in, like a snow scene or something, where for example, where you need stuff in the foreground, middle, and background. You need action everywhere to really emphasize the 3D. And when characters are just talking to each other in a little straw hut, the 3D is kind of worthless. And but I would randomly take the 3D glasses off because this is something I've liked to do with the last couple 3D movies I've seen, just to kind of get it, just to see like because like the films get blurry, and like the really 3D intensive scenes, the films get super blurry. But when they're just kind of talking to each other in a straw hut, you take your glasses off, and the blur isn't nearly as bad because the effect isn't nearly as necessary.
Yeah, I did that exact same thing as well. I just kind of like lifted my glasses up and looked and like, oh, okay, so this is what we're doing here. It felt like the 3D kind of got short shrift, and I that disappoints me. That disappoints me because James Cameron, kind of blew me away in 2009 with the way they did the 3D. I mean, he made that intentionally for 3D, and this one didn't really work for me. One thing I will say that I really, really liked about this, and it's one scene in particular, and I don't care if people out there laugh at me and think like, oh man, that's yeah, I'm taking away your man card. That sequence when they harpoon that space whale, I found that just like devastating. Like because I look at, I was thinking about this when I was coming home, just sort of walking home and letting this film percolate in my mind. And it seems to me that James Cameron, like the first film is like, save the rainforest, right?
Yeah,
Stop exploiting the forest and killing all the creatures in the forest. And in this movie, they go, I don't remember what these space whales are called, something with a T, talk,
the
talk.
Cocoon.
Cocoon, okay. They go into really vivid detail about like these are, even the humans say these are far more intelligent than humans. I mean, they compose their own music, they have advanced mathematics, and they're just space whales, right?
Yeah,
And here in the real world, everyone knows that James Cameron loves the ocean, right? He loves the fucking ocean. um,
yeah,
but here in the real world, we know that whales are hunted, and it's very brutal on how they're hunted. They get harpooned, then they get basically gutted, and it's very, very disturbing. But we never actually really watch that stuff. Nobody goes out of their way to watch a whale being harpooned, to really viscerally get that reaction and be like, oh shit, that's not good, that's bad. We know it happens, but we don't let it get into our eyeballs. Generally, they don't show that in elementary school, like, here kids, here's what happens when a whale gets harpooned, what do you think of that? I feel like this movie is James Cameron's like, hey, guess what, guys, now we got to save the oceans, and here's why. And he kind of used this space whale like sequence to really show how brutal it is and sort of uncaring it is when these humans are just taking out these sort of like majestic creatures, right? That aren't doing anything to anybody, but they're killing them. And there's even a point where they take out like one little thing, essentially that they're harvesting part of their brain because it has a fluid in it that can stop human aging in its tracks.
Yeah.
And so they're not even using the rest of these giant whales. They just let them rot out in the ocean. And they're taking this one little thing. And I was sitting there watching it. I'm like, God, I feel like I'm getting a little emotional watching this. It had really nothing to do with all the other events that were going on in the film, but just watching these assholes harpoon this like defenseless space whale, it kind of got to me. And I think that's effective filmmaking, and I think that's James Cameron's way of saying, like, I know no one's going to go intentionally watch a real whale getting harpooned and gutted on the on the ship. But here, I know I'm going to have millions of people watching this, and I'm going to make an entire sequence showing what actually happens to whales in real life, and then maybe somewhere that'll trigger someone into thinking about things a little differently, and conservation and environmentalism and stuff like that. Now, whether or not you like that kind of stuff in your movies, or if you feel that's too preachy, what he's doing, I will say that scene I thought was really great. And really impactful. And I got that message, from it. Did you feel like that was what he was trying to do with stuff like that in certain scenes?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's absolutely like yeah. The first movie, yeah, that's protect the rainforest and stuff. And like after he made that movie, yeah, he got invited and basically asked to come out to like all these places in South America to help like these local tribes protect the rainforest from big companies that were like trying to cut them down and shit. And he did that for a while before he went back to go do more underwater documentaries and shit before eventually deciding, oh yeah, I have to make another Avatar movie. So that's 100% what it is. Like that's the message in this one. We need to protect the oceans and whatnot. And I'm not, it's like that's a fine message to have in your movie. I can't knock it. It is a little too on the nose.
Yeah, it's pretty on the nose. Yeah.
Yeah, like someone like someone like you. I don't mean to hate on him, but someone like Jeff is just going to watch that and roll his eyes so
Yeah,
fucking hard, and
absolutely.
just kind of be like, "This is dumb." No, it's because yeah, it is.
Jeff's gonna
It
say,
is
"Fuck the whales. Fuck the
yeah,
space whales.
yeah, yeah,
I don't want to age another day."
yeah, yeah. Like like he like it is going to be that kind of. This is too. It's too on the nose. There's nothing subtle about it. So if it wasn't so directly like that, and also it's like when actual whales are killed too in reality, because like I understand the movie's like what PG 13.
Yeah,
If he made the Tokun like whaling sequence more accurate to what it really is, and the good excuse to why he can't is because oh yes they're actually armored, and there's very few spots on their body that are soft enough to actually penetrate. And like, okay, well, yeah, there's your script reason for why it's not violently bloody as fuck.
you want to mortify all the little children that are in the audience.
Yeah, yeah, because that's what actual whaling looks like. It's just like oceans and rivers of blood coming out of them because they are so huge.
Yeah,
So obviously you can't put that in your movie. And like the interesting thing, like during that sequence, because you have like Stephen Lang, who like I know that's not the character's name, but I can't pronounce his
Quaritch.
last. Yeah,
Was it
Quaritch or something.
Quaritch? Yeah.
Because they rarely call him by his name, so I haven't heard it that much. But yeah, it's some Q name like Quartej or Quaritch or something like that. So I just have to call him Stephen Lang. So Stephen Lang is on the boat with them while they're harpooning the whales, and it is sort of a subtle thing where you can kind of get the gripes because he's asking them questions like they don't ever fight back, because you get
Yeah.
the vibe that even he's not really into this because it's like there's no sport in this. The Na'vi fight back. That's fun to fight them.
Yeah.
This isn't fun.
Yeah, the human, the sky people, also known as humans, are all made to look like assholes in this movie. Like just and they the same way in the original Avatar, almost
The
every single one of them are just horrible people.
the
And they even mentioned
original,
early on in this one that Edie Falco's character, she's like, the Earth is dying. We are
yeah,
all coming to Pandora. Like we're
yeah.
all going to live here, and we're going to pacify all these people because we're taking their planet.
Yeah, that's why I was saying it's like that's another one of the stupid elements of this movie. The first movie sets it up very clearly that the forest moon of Pandora is the most hostile, violent environment that humans have encountered in all of their space traveling. So, and then they decide, yeah, this place where we can't breathe the fucking air, where everything that walks, crawls, or swims wants to eat your eyes for jujubes. Direct
The whole
quote.
planet's trying to kill you because it looks at you as a virus.
Yeah, yeah, and like, but yeah, well, no, we're gonna move here. We're gonna make this place work. That means either A, Pandora is the only other planet that we've ever found that's in the Goldilocks zone, or B, it's just lazy storytelling, and they want to try and up the ante a little bit. But that's another one of the dumb aspects because it's like, no, no, it's like you could maybe put a colony here or there on the planet, but you can't move the entire fucking species to this planet. Like it's not feasibly possible. Every fucking city is going to be in a glass dome. Fuck you, movie. And, like,
Yeah, you don't want to. You can't really think about the plots of these movies too deeply, otherwise you see all the cracks, right? I think it's mostly James Cameron is trying to give sort of a general story that we are all aware of and that many people love. I mean, how many variations of Dances with Wolves has there been that people really really love? A lot. Um, but he's trying to use sort of emotional connection to with the audience. Like you're supposed to, take in this world that he has created, Pandora, which looks amazing. I mean, I think the planet that he's creating here looks awesome. I mean, you don't see anything quite like it on in any other movie. I mean, it is his own sort of unique world that he's creating here, but he's trying to appeal to the emotions of the audience, get involved with these characters, understand the problems that they're going through where, evil corporations are exploiting them, and look at all the stuff that has happened in real life, throughout the world, throughout the history of the world. And I'm just taking all of these big topics and these things that have occurred on earth in real life to millions of people, and I'm trying to package it in a way that you've sort of never seen before, visual wise, and sort of you know wrapping it in a sort of popcorn entertainment sort of thing for you to hopefully sort of digest, let it sink in, and maybe you'll get online and look at, well, yeah, I do want to learn more about, how do I save the oceans or the forest or whatever. Couple other things I want to mention that I did think that I didn't like. There's a few sequences here, like most of this is shot like in a 60 frames per second, so it kind of has that soap opera-y feel. It's not 24 frames. It's not your classic film look, at least the vast majority of the movie. And there are a few sequences where the CG looks really wonky, especially when they're kind of like the Navi are like moving around. That I was like, that didn't look great. It looked a little cheesy. And I will also say another criticism I will have of this film is there are some. It feels like a lot was chopped out of this movie, and it was kind of thrown together. There are sequences here where you're focused on the Navi, and then suddenly it cuts to Stephen Lang for like 15 seconds. It's just a shot of him talking to a couple of his Avatar soldiers, and then it cuts back.
yeah,
And there's it'll cut to a strange reaction of a character that feels a little out of place, almost like I had to cut a sequence here, so I threw in a reaction shot to try to bridge the gap. I did notice that in this, and that is something I'm not used to from seeing a James Cameron movie. I felt that there's a little bit of sloppiness that shows Did you notice anything like that? Anything come across a little weird to you?
Like as far as like the CG looking a little wonky, no. But in terms of like the storytelling and stuff, yeah, yeah. Because I believe we were I think we were about to, I don't know if we were going to play if we were doing like a Coward Squad video of Fortnite, or if we were just playing Fortnite for shits and giggles. But that was when I had just seen the movie, and you asked me about it, and I mentioned that it seemed like while the plot and everything seems very good, and I can't really it's at the one hand, it's a story that's told very well, but also feels very clunky and messy. For most of the reasons that you just mentioned, it seems like it has too many characters, and then it also seems to forget certain characters exist until randomly they pop back up again, and you're like,
Yeah,
oh yeah, there they are. Well, where the fuck have they been? Like that that sort of thing, like especially with Stephen Lang and his avatar soldiers randomly disappearing and then repopping up again. Like the 40 minutes or so of this movie is like Jake's kids learning how to be sea people, and then Stephen Lang is just gone for a while, and
yeah.
then he
And they're
randomly
like,
pops back.
"Oh, we know where he's at now. He's over here in these islands. Now we got to go get him," sort
Yeah,
of thing.
yeah, and like I understand they wanted to, for storytelling purposes, it's like, okay, how do we get like Stephen Lang from point A to point B? Because he can't just fly around in helicopters, because they actually have established that their aircraft does kind of set off the flying creatures, the banshees and the stuff. Like the planet doesn't like that, which again goes into that stupid element from the first movie. So it's like, okay, how are they going to get around from point A to point B? So randomly, there is a scene where Stephen Lang and his Avatar forces go up to I think they called it Uru, like in the first movie, it's where the Banshees live, and
Yeah,
so you have to go up there and complete your own little trial to get your own Banshee, and it's there so that way they have a fast means of transportation. But at the same time, it doesn't feel right in the movie, like
it
Steve
feels
pointed
too
out.
easy. It feels like they just did it way too easy and quick. Even Stephen Lang's character is like, "Oh, Jake did this on his own," because he's like going to trank one of them or something like that, and
Yeah,
Spider's like, "No, no, you got to do that on your own," and like I can't believe that all of these grunts just that easily were able to tame all of these different banshees, and then but okay, again, the plot needed it to happen, therefore
it
it
does.
happens that way.
Yeah,
So yeah, again, I can't defend the story choices in this. I agree with you that the general story that they're telling is a solid story, but there are cracks, and they're not defensible in any way. Like if Jeff were to come at me, because I will say I liked this movie, but for all of its faults, I came out of it liking it more than the first Avatar. Um, but I know Jeff. He just watched the first Avatar and he hates it. He thinks it's absolutely terrible. So I know there's no way in hell that he would enjoy this, unless I mean he is a father, so maybe he would get something out of the family element. You and I do not have kids, so I mean, I connected with the family element more than I did anything in the original Avatar, and I don't have kids, so I'd
yeah.
be curious as to see if Jeff ever does watch Way of Water, how he connects to the actual family element. Because I do think James Cameron did a pretty good job showcasing. I have a sister, that sort of dynamic of how older brothers and sort of like the younger brother and the sisters, and how all of those people interact with one another. But overall, yeah. So wrapping up our thoughts, I will in our standard outpost unknown letter grade. I'm going to give Avatar: The Way of Water, considering I was disappointed with how the 3D came out. Oh, another thing, for the first time ever, I got a headache from the 3D. That night, I came back home and I had a headache. I had to go to bed at like 6 o'clock because it was so bad. And I was like, it's never happened to me watching a 3D movie before. I was like, am I getting old, or was it Avatar: The Way of Water? I'm going to give this a B minus. I liked it more than the first Avatar, but there are certainly story elements and things that I was disappointed with that brought it down. But I like the characters in this. It's almost like one of those things where you even if the story of something is not great, and I can bring my love of Star Wars into this as well. There's a lot of Star Wars stuff that I'm like, yikes, man. The story that I'm telling here is not that great, but I love the characters. Like, I like the characters of the sequel trilogy. I really do. I like Rey and Poe and Finn. The story, god awful, but I kind of just enjoy myself, living in that world with those characters and seeing what they're up to. Curious as to, I will go see Avatar 3 when it comes out. James Cameron apparently announced that there's going to be like evil Navi in there, and they're like the fire Navi. So maybe we'll be getting some. Maybe he's going to actually change up the story that we're kind of seeing here.
Yeah, because he can't retell like I understand kind of why this movie more or less kind of hits the same. It does the Force Awakens really. They pulls the Force Awakens trick where it's like we're going to not remake, but we're going to redo the first Avatar, reintroduce you to the world and the way things work, to to get people back into the mindset of it, while like introducing you to new characters that you're going to enjoy going on a nice little adventure. It pulls the Force Awakens trick, and just like the Force Awakens, it works. It's fine. It's good. You look forward to the next movie, which hopefully won't subvert your expectations. so
yeah.
yeah,
So what is your letter grade for Avatar: The Way of Water? You gave the first Avatar, you said a B plus. How are you
yeah.
rating it with The Way of Water?
I'd probably stick with like the B plus. It's like the things that kind of keep it down for me from being like from being like an A class or maybe even an S tier movie, which that's his like that is his like I just forgot the word I would be looking for it, but that is about as much as I'll go against the grain, because like yeah, it is. I haven't watched a lot of YouTube videos on the first Avatar, but because a lot of YouTubers are a lot better than we are at putting things out in a timely manner to take advantage of like the high search stuff
The
for it.
algorithm.
Yeah, but like just kind of scrolling through my YouTube feed, there are a lot of like videos that'll pop up talking about like Avatar, like in the original one, talking about how it's like, was it overrated? Does it hold up? Blah blah blah. It's I haven't watched any of those, but like it does seem very trendy to hate on the first movie,
Yeah, for sure.
and I can't hate on it, but I also can say that like I do think there was a little bit of overhype to that first movie. This movie, because we are talking about the second one. This movie, it even though there's like a big ad campaign behind it, I think it's basically like on par with the same sort of level. It has the same dumb shit that bothers me, like the biology, and then suddenly it's like, oh yeah, it's not just there is no like iffy explanation. No, no, it is just this weird spiritual like slash pseudo religious thing. The planet is literally alive, like, and that's kind of dumb to me. But outside of that, it works fine. It was good. Yeah, again, the B plus.
Yeah, and I think what everyone needs to keep in mind, because obviously, I mean, we don't have a lot of viewership on Outpost Unknown, so I doubt we're going to get hateful comments. But if you disagree with us on this, please leave a comment. We'd be happy to respond to it and take a look at it. But what I think it's really important for people to understand is when you're watching a movie, you can like and enjoy a movie while also acknowledging the faults and the problems and the things you didn't like about the movie. Two things can be true simultaneously, so it doesn't have to be, oh my god, Avatar sucks. It's so terrible. I hate everything about it. Why do people like this? It's like, sometimes movies just hit differently with people. You and I, we generally like these Avatar movies. I'm looking forward to the next one, and yeah, I can't muster up much hate towards James Cameron for this. Would I like to see him do something else on the level of like Terminator or Aliens or True Lies or something like that? Sure, I would. But he's not, and the guy is a super talented filmmaker. He's always pushing the cutting edge of technology in movies, and I want to support that kind of filmmaker. I feel like James Cameron has earned my movie making dollar after all of the great stuff that he has done, and entertainment he's put in my life. Yeah, okay, I'm going to support the guy. He puts a movie out once every decade. Come on.
Yeah.
Just gonna support him for it.
He's got a film release rate that's almost on par with the Nintendo release of their own individual properties. You might get
Yeah,
one Zelda game per 10 years.
yeah, yeah,
One Mario game per 10 years. That's the Cameron philosophy. Do it like
yeah.
Nintendo.
Yeah, and the guy, hey man, the guy's passionate about Avatar. He's passionate about this world he created, and other people are too. I mean, this is everybody for 13 years said Avatar 2, if it ever comes out, it's gonna flop. It's gonna be the biggest, flop in cinema history. Never doubt James Cameron. I don't know why people continue to doubt him. They doubted
Yeah.
him with Titanic. They doubted him with Avatar. They doubted him with The Way of the Water. And all the guy does is make like $2 billion grossing movies. So clearly there are people out there. Oh, one last thing I'll ask you. You went to a couple showings of this. What was the audience reaction in yours to like either during the film or when it was immediately after? Did you get any noticeable reaction from anybody?
No, no, not well. No, I don't mean this in that kind of negative way because, like, I mentioned when we saw Black Panther, like there were some women sitting next to me, and like that movie, like all the things that need and like film wise that needed to hit the audience, and like this is a big emotional moment. It hit those women every fucking time. They cried multiple times in the movie. Everything worked. The directors would be in the back and go like, like a little girl watching it work. Like this movie, people just kind of watched it. They sort of sat back. I didn't, I didn't hear any noticeable gasp or oohs or ahs or people talking or applauding as the movie ended. Yeah, that doesn't mean that they weren't engaged with it. It just means that they were watching contently. Yeah. So I
Yeah,
don't really have
yeah,
any kind of like oh man, people hated it. They were so bored. People sitting next to me were playing with their phone. No, I didn't say anything like that. People were just contently
yeah.
watching.
I will say my screening, it was a lot of families, a lot of parents bringing their kids to go see this, and interestingly enough, it doesn't fail. Every movie I go see in the theater, there are assholes on their phone in the middle of it, and you see the lights of the cell phone pop on, and it's annoying as fuck. My theater was fairly full, probably 3/4 full when I went and saw it. Not a single cell phone throughout the entire movie. So I don't know if that was just people were really into it and just very focused, and it was keeping them away from their phones. But there was nothing, which I was. That was something that popped. It was very noticeable to me when I left the theater. The other thing is I like to kind of hang around a little bit, just to sort of hear the reaction and listen to people's conversations around when the thing was over. And the general reaction, again, nobody was jumping up and down. No one was clapping when this was over, like a fun adventure filled Marvel movie like Endgame or something. I saw Endgame and like people were crying and clapping and giving it a standing ovation when it was over.
Yeah.
Nothing like this. But what I will say is a lot of the people in there, I didn't hear anything negative, and I heard a lot of people just generally discussing how much they liked it. And I did look at Rotten Tomatoes as of today, January 5th. It's got a 92% audience score, over 10,000 verified ratings. And what I think is very important about that score is the internet has told us for 13 years that everybody hates Avatar. Nobody likes it. Everybody hates it. And normally when a movie comes out like this, you're just going to get trolls that are going to review bomb the shit out of something like this. The fact
Jeff.
to me, yeah, to me, the fact that this is at 90% audience like, again, 92% doesn't mean people are giving it an A plus. It just means like, C plus, that's a fresh score, right? The fact that this is so high audience wise, this connects with people in some way that I think a lot of us might not quite understand. Even our friends like Jeff, who watch it and like, what the fuck, this is dumb, this is stupid. Why does anybody like this? Maybe we just don't get it. Maybe we just don't get the love for it. But that doesn't mean it's not there. And
Yeah,
people,
I'm fully in that camp as to like I like these movies. These movies are solid, but I remember when the first one came out, you would get those kind of cringe-worthy stories of people having like Pandora depression and stuff like
yeah,
that, which I imagine in reality that was kind of like the stories a few years ago about teens eating Tide Pods, where in all actuality, in the whole of the continental US, it was like maybe 10 teens that ate Tide Pods because of the Tide Pod challenge. It was a fucking joke that only the dumbest of teenagers actually went for and really did it. That more people drank that fucking fish tank cleaner when Trump was talking about, like when Trump mentioned it, like during COVID. More people died from the fish tank cleaner than did from Tide Pod. So I imagine that those stories were like small, very clickbaity kind of, because it was the early days of the internet when the clickbait was, far like people weren't prepped for it like they are now. I
Yeah.
mentioned that to just bring up, like, yeah, I remember hearing those kind of stories. And bear in mind, like, not all of it. I imagine like that's an extreme, very extreme case, but I also know that, yeah, a lot of people really did fall in love with that first movie. I don't understand how you can like the movie that much. Even
Yeah, agreed.
and I like that movie. Yeah, I think it's a solid movie. It's but I don't get how people can have that much of an attachment to it, or this one. Like,
I am telling you, and I keep telling everybody this, don't underestimate that Disney theme park of Avatar. I've been there. It's incredible. Like, it is literally incredible. The rides are super cool, and I think you've just had years and years and years of Disney fans going and just always seeing Avatar. Oh, what is this? And checking out the movie. Even if it's someone who goes to Disneyland once in a decade, right? They go to this Avatar land. They don't know anything about it. They have an amazing time. What are they going to do? They're going to go seek out that first movie and watch it. And then maybe they really love it because they're like, oh, wow, this is so cool. It's just like the theme park and stuff. You know, I feel like I've been mocked a little bit about the theme park thing, but Disney gets millions and millions of people through their theme parks. And Avatar, I feel like that has kept it culturally relevant. And I think that's borne out by a lot of these box office numbers. In the box office, I think right now it's at 1.5 billion. It just hit a billion overseas. So clearly it's not just a United States thing. I know we're very, I always forget the word where it's like you're centered, we only think about Americanism or whatever, and think of
it's called
everything.
selfish.
Yes, the stuff like, oh, if it's not popular in America, it's not popular and culturally relevant anywhere else. I think this is very culturally relevant around the world, and I think that is definitely borne out by the box office numbers. So even if it's not like a sky high super hit here, in the U.S., I mean, I think it's at 450 million bucks already. I think it's going to blow by stuff like Black Panther and
It
Doctor.
already, yeah, it has by a great margin. I
Yeah,
didn't save it, but I saw a Reddit post where it was a screenshot of, like, here are like the top 20 films of 2022. And like, this was 2022. Bear in mind, like, Avatar Way of Water was out in theaters in 2022 for like what, 2.5, 3 weeks.
yeah,
And in that small amount, I don't even think it was that long, like maybe 2.5 weeks. I don't think it was three. But in that very brief amount of time, it became the number two for the entire year. So the first two, like like, it was very telling to see that the top three grossing movies for 2020 were not Marvel movies.
yeah.
That was very. It was Top Gun Maverick, which I believe Avatar. I don't
Just
know if
beat
you
it
could.
today, I think.
Yeah, but I don't, like, because it is technically 2023. I don't know how you would add that up because it came out in 22. Does it still
They
count?
yeah, they still count anything that was released calendar year. They even if it bleeds into 2023, they still count that as 2022 box office.
Okay, okay. I wasn't like, I figured they would, but at the same time, I wasn't quite sure. But okay, so it's definitely, it 100% will beat Top Gun Maverick. It will be the top grossing movie of 2022. But so it's like number one, at least on this list, was Maverick, and then after that it was Avatar, and then after that, the thing that kind of hurt me, it hurt me to see it, was fucking Jurassic World Dominion. That shitty fucking movie was number three. And
That
like,
may or may not be on my 10 worst things of the year list coming out soon on Outpost Unknown.
I was not aware that you had seen it.
Oh yeah, I saw it. I saw it because I love the first Jurassic Park, and my fiance just loves. It's her favorite movie is the original Jurassic Park. So she goes through this sort of like this hate watch of all the sequels, kind of like a ritual that we have to do. And of course, I love Ian Malcolm. It's one of my favorite movie characters ever. So I was like, well, Ian Malcolm is going to be. I gotta go see it. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I mean, this isn't a Jurassic Park discussion, but yeah,
correct.
yeah, it's like it hurt me to see that that was there,
But
and like,
basically, what we're saying is like Avatar. Lots of people love this franchise and this movie, and it is literally a franchise now.
yeah,
They're going to have Avatar 3 out, and we're going to hear for the next 2 or 3 years, oh, it'll never make the money that Way of Water did, and Avatar. I'm like, guys, you just need to let it go. Lots of people like these movies,
yeah.
and it's okay to like them, and it's okay to be like, yeah, there's a lot of problems with them, but I still came out of it enjoying myself. So, yeah,
It is a situation possibly where it's like a movie, like, the sum of its parts, like, it can still rise above that and become better than the sum of its parts because,
yeah,
like as I mentioned in our first Avatar, discussion of Avatar 1, the biology of the planet makes no sense the minute you introduce the Navi because they do not work with the rest of the biology of the planet. And it's like Cameron went out of his way to make it scientifically viable. Like, he got like fucking like, wildlife experts and like got like, like famous like the designers from otherworldly planets and stuff to try and make something that would be scientifically viable. And it's like, okay, and then we're gonna throw in these fucking blue cats with USB drives in their heads. And it's like that, like it does not work with the biology of the planet. It's like they don't fit in, and that bothers me. And then also like
yeah,
they have this deity in the planet, and like it would have worked better had it just been kind of like up to interpretation as to whether or not like like it was a real thing. And then Jake Sully goes to pray to the spirit tree, and it's like like you can tap into my memories. You know what my race is going to do to this planet. We're going to fuck it up royally. And then yeah, all the animals converge at the final battle. It's like this is
yeah.
the
And
whole planet turns
I would have
against.
liked for Way of Water, specifically to bring it kind of back around to Way of Water. I would have liked this to have been two separate movies. I would have liked one of the movies to have been following Jake and his family, and then the other one following Spider and Stephen Lang's character and doing all that. I think if you would have broke that up into two separate movies instead of like cramming it all into 3 hours and 10 minutes, you could have had a better story flow and sort of pacing and stuff. But that's neither here nor there. And what Ronan is referencing is we did a very long conversation on the first Avatar while we were playing Fortnite. I haven't posted that yet because there's a lot of editing that has to take place because we kept getting attacked and thrown
Yeah,
off
yeah,
track.
I don't know if like for like in-depth movie conversations, if Fortnite is the way to go for that sort of thing.
Probably not. We probably made a mistake there. I'm going to try to edit it, but and get it out, but no promises because I have to listen to that whole thing in real time and then go through and start chopping, and it's already started to be kind of a nightmare. But we
Yeah, I
basically,
think poker is the better option for when we're
for
going to
sure,
have like these kind of in-depth roundtable discussions for movies.
for sure, for sure. So, thank you everyone for listening to this in-depth, spoiler-filled review of Avatar: The Way of Water. We both enjoyed it. We'd recommend you see it at some point in time. Probably best to see it on the big screen if you can. But if not, if you got a big television, that'll probably suffice. It'll be on Disney Plus in a few months anyway. So, with that, leave a comment. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts on Avatar? This giant behemoth of a franchise now, where we're gonna get like 6, 7, 8 avatars because they're all gonna make $2 billion, and Disney wants to keep raking in that money because they're in such debt right now. So thanks for listening, and check back soon for more great stuff on Outpost Unknown, including top 10 lists. I have a top 10 list coming out of the best movies and TV of the year and the worst movies and TVs of the year. We're starting up a new show, Ronin, Steve, and myself, called Jupiter's Croc, which is our episode by episode show on the Spartacus TV series that was on Stars a few years back. So lots of cool stuff coming up in the future. We'll see you then. Thanks for listening.